Charlie Ryan is the chairman of the nominating committee, and he's going to be master of ceremonies. I just want to make a couple of observations, and I think they're important to all of us. First and foremost, we have an outstanding array of candidates. We're very pleased with the interest in running for the two boards. We've had the opportunity to talk to these folks, and we're very pleased that we have as much interest as we do, and I think you'll feel the same way once you hear them. I think the big challenge for all of us will be deciding among them of those seats that are available. Just as a reminder, the ballots will go out on or about November 1st. They're expected to be returned no later than the end of November, the 1st of December. They'll be tallied, tabulated. The tabulation is done by a public accounting firm. Those of us here, and whether they be candidates or whether they be those on the boards, have nothing to do with the tabulation. That's done by an accounting firm, and we don't see them until it's over, if you will. With that, I will turn the program over to Charlie. Thank you.
Good afternoon. A couple of comments first. Those of us at the Blue Jackets are the singing group. And then Sue and Eberly and Buddy and George are going to do the backup singing. We had a great time this morning at 9 o'clock, but it's evident that this is a community that likes to rise a little later, and we've got a bigger crowd this afternoon. So we thank you very, very much for being here. Great day in Sea Pines. We have some extraordinary candidates, as Rob said, for both the ASSPPO and CSA boards. Last July, we were at this community, or at this location with Community Coffee, and we put out a clarion call for board candidates who are willing to give of their time, talent, and experience to help enrich our plantation. And we had a really good group come forth. Your nominating committee, consisting of Christine Beal, Bob Mang, Rob Marsack, Mike Hellman, Chris Widnell, and me, received 11 applications. 2 of the applicants withdrew, leaving us with 9 candidates. Needless to say, we were gratified that there was an excellent response to the call for candidates. The nominating committee interviews consisted of questions asked the candidates and questions asked by the candidates of the committee members, and it was an excellent vetting process. There are 3 positions up for election for both the ASSPPO and CSA boards. ASSPPO current board members who have decided not to run again are Christine Beal, Bob Mang, and Rob Marsack. Rob will remain as a member of the CSA board until his current term ends. CSA current board members who have decided not to run again are Angie Greenfield, Mike Hellman, and Bob Mang. Your nominating committee recommendations for the CSA board are Paul Crunkleton, Mark Griffith, Charlie Miner, William Snyder, and Michael Tucker. The nominating committee recommendations for the ASSPPO board are Mark Griffith, Charlie Miner, Eberly Smith, William Snyder, and Michael Tucker. Nominated by petition are Sue Emke, George Paletta, and Buddy Thompson. They're all here, the 9 candidates before you today. They've been asked to come to the podium 3 times to answer questions composed by the nominating committee. They are asked to use 1 minute only to answer the first question and 3 minutes to answer each of the following 2 questions. The reason for that, the meeting is being videotaped and will appear in its entirety on the CSA website. And then also on the website will be those first 10-minute, 1-minute questions and answers. So we're giving people the opportunity when they go to the website to say, well, I'll watch the whole 1 hour and 15 minutes, or I don't want to watch that. I'm going to watch the 10 minutes of 1-minute answers. 9 minutes, but 10 minutes sounds easier. This is being done to give the viewers the opportunity to view the full forum or the shortened version. So let's get started in alphabetical order. I'm going to ask each candidate to come forward as I call his or her name and answer the question I pose. I'm going to ask each candidate to rise from his or her chair as I begin their introduction and come to the podium, thereby saving us the time between questions asked and space traveled from their chairs to the distant podium. I'm going to ask them, if elected, what will be your mission as a board member, and they're going to have 1 minute to answer. Christine Beal is the official timekeeper. When 45 minutes goes by, she will hold up 45 seconds? When 45 seconds goes by, she will hold up the yellow card. Hold it up. Okay. And then when the time has expired, she will hold up the red card. We asked her to go around the ring like this, but she said she would not do that. Again, we're doing this in alphabetical order, and we're going to start to my right and go to my left. First is Paul Crunkleton. Paul is currently serving on the ASSPPO board and is running for the CSA board. He grew up in Philadelphia. He received a BS in chemistry from Philadelphia University. He has had a long career in sales and management and retired as Director of Global Accounts for Eastman Chemical. So, Paul, the question is, if elected, what will be your mission as a board member?
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I hope you've enjoyed a beautiful Sea Pines day. If I'm elected, my mission I see is one of building trust and confidence between property owners and the CSA board. I'm obviously a fellow property owner and have been since 1990, and also a full-time resident since the year 2000. I want to enhance the quality of our life by doing what is best for the resident property owner. Now, all of us want to feel that our needs and concerns are being heard by somebody who cares enough to listen and then have a dialogue to the point where action is taken for the good of all property owners. So my mission, therefore, will be to accept the challenge, build consensus, and earn the confidence and trust of my fellow property owners. Thus, we can get things accomplished and further enhance the quality of our life in Sea Pines. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Sue Emke is a candidate for the ASSPPO board. She has a BS in ceramic engineering. She worked for 10 years as a ceramic engineer. She also has a law degree and practiced law for 18 years, all the while raising a family and volunteering in the community. She has served on the Sea Pines Country Club board as its secretary. She's a member of the Women's Club of Sea Pines, where she also served as secretary. She's been active in numerous community and volunteer services since moving here full-time in 2001. Sue, your mission.
Thank you, Charlie, and welcome everyone. It's about at least double what we had this morning, if not more. My name is Sue Emke. My husband Lane and I have been full-time residents since 2001. We have 2 sons and 1 daughter. We moved here because of the natural beauty of Sea Pines Plantation. ASSPPO, I'm only running for the ASSPPO board. ASSPPO is the sole representative of the residential property owners, both full-time and part-time. It is time for the ASSPPO board members to use the authority granted by the covenants to steadfastly enforce the covenants and vigorously represent the residential property owners. If elected, my mission will be to provide effective representation of the interests of the residential property owners. This will involve communicating openly with them concerning all matters that affect them, providing a forum in which they can express their opinions, listening to those opinions, and acting in conformance with those opinions. Thank you.
Mark Griffith is running for both boards. He's a retired senior executive of a real estate private equity firm specializing in investment in commercial real estate and commercial real estate debt products across the U.S., the U.K., and Western Europe. He headed the company's entry into the U.K. and Western Europe and resided in the U.K. until his retirement in 2009. He's president of the Calabogie Cay Property Owners Association and is a director of Coastal States Bank. Mark?
Thank you, Charlie, and welcome everyone this afternoon. I want to thank Charlie and the nominating committee for considering me and agreeing to place me on the ballot this year for both the ASSPPO and the CSA boards. And I wish also the best for all of my fellow candidates. As for my mission, I expect to execute the business of our community in a manner which will ensure that Sea Pines continues to be the premier plantation on Hilton Head Island. I'll apply my experience, my knowledge that I've gained over these 30 plus years in a sensible way, considering all the matters before the board, and act in a matter which is in the best interest of the community as a whole. Thank you.
Charlie Miner is running for both boards. He's a retired senior executive of a real estate private equity firm specializing. Oops,
Wrong guy.
strike that. Charlie Miner, let me begin again. Charlie Miner is running for both boards. He's retired as president, CEO of the Cleveland Clinic Health System. Do I have this right so far?
Yep.
Okay. Cleveland Health System East Region and managing director of the Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi. He says he had a heck of a commute. He served as president of the Hudson, Ohio Board of Education, the Cleveland Round Table, Urban League, Ohio Hospital Association, and Blue Cross Community Health Plan, and I haven't asked his opinion about Obamacare. Charlie.
And as I said this morning, I only have 1 minute, so I can't cover that one. When I interviewed, they asked me, what do you think, or what few things do you think that you can contribute? And I have a couple of interests that I think I bring to this in terms of a mission. One is long-range planning. I think that we need to know how and where we are going. We're making rapid progress on that. I have good experience on it in that I headed up the long-range planning committee for the Sea Pines Country Club, and we have implemented many of those ideas. Second thing I have a great interest in personally, and I'm a frequent visitor, is the Forest Preserve. And again, I serve on the Forest Preserve board, so it's very dear to my heart. If I had to come up with a mission, I think I'd come up with something simple because that's what I like to do. I like to keep it brief and I like to keep it simple. And that is to serve well. That's my job. These boards run on committee structure, so you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to listen, you have to be willing to compromise, and you need to understand what's going on. And I hope I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. George Paletta is running for the ASSPPO board only. He's a graduate of Fairfield University of Connecticut. He spent his professional career as an entrepreneur and manager in the construction industry, specializing in street and road construction, including sewer, water, fiber optics, asphalt, concrete recycling, and public utilities. I know some of his background, so when in New York, make certain you give him great credit for the infrastructure below your feet. George.
Thank you for everyone showing up. And my main mission, if elected, will be to lobby for free medical care and for a pension after serving only one term. Just kidding, this isn't Washington, D.C., but a special slice of paradise called Sea Pines Plantation. And my mission, if elected, is to pursue ASSPPO's rights to enforce the covenants, to protect the residents, the need to have open and early discussion about any projects with the developers and the town council. This will hopefully give some transparency to the issues and alert the town about our covenants. Full discussion, transparency, and the covenants must be involved in all matters regarding the residents' rights for any future development. This is my mission.
Eberly Smith is running for the ASSPPO board. She has a diverse professional background. She's been a flight attendant and probation officer. She's just retired as a tenured professor at Roanoke College and Hollins University. She has served as co-facilitator of both individual and family therapy groups and was president of the Child Abuse Prevention Board in Virginia. She's married to Lawrence Kuntz, who's a good man to know if you're litigating in Virginia. Lawrence is Senior Justice of the Virginia Supreme Court. Yesterday when I was talking with Eberly, she said, my goodness, I'm going to be in front of all those people. It might be just a little bit difficult, but I'll think of them as my students. And I said, if you think of them as your students, we're very lucky because we've got the best teacher in the world. Eberly?
Thank you, Charlie. As with all of the other candidates, I thank you for being here and for your attention. My mission, if elected, would be to attempt to bring together property owners, full-time residents, part-timers, and investors through regularly scheduled, more informal groups. There are those who cannot come to community coffees. They are working, they're out of town, they're on vacation, or if they come, they are almost afraid to speak up. And I think that in this community, there is an incredible amount of talent and creativity. Creativity which can deal with both issues as well as potential solutions. I would like to originate and hold small informal groups that are scheduled and open, and then take the information that I receive, both issues and potential solutions, to the board for action. Thank you.
Bill Snyder is running for both boards. He spent most of his business career at Continental Bank in Chicago, where he served as group head treasury and on the management committee. He has served as a board member of several corporations and as CEO of 2 banks. He's a graduate of the University of Illinois with an MBA from Illinois and is a graduate of Stanford's Advanced Management Program.
Thank you, Charlie, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the nominating committee for putting my name forth here, and I appreciate that. Why am I running for the board? And let me give you something there. I want to be an effective director and help the board further improve its effectiveness. I think you as property owners 2 years ago spoke up, got involved in the process, had your voices heard, and decided to hold the board accountable, which you've been doing. I think the board has responded to that. I think they've made changes. I think they've started the improvements in those. And I think the 3 directors that were elected to the board last year have added to that. So I think some of the heavy lifting has either started or is underway, but I think there's a lot of work left to do. I think my expertise in finance and economics and also in executive management would fit the needs of these boards, and then I would commit to put in the time and resources to make it an effective board and be an effective board member. Thank you.
Buddy Thompson is running for the ASSPPO board. He served as the planning director of the Glenn County Joint Planning Commission and community planner in the South Carolina Governor's Office, giving professional support to communities throughout the state in development of their comprehensive plans. Buddy came to the area as executive director of the Low Country Council of Governments, in charge of planning and development for 24 member communities. Buddy?
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon. My mission, if elected, is my primary concern is the one of openness, and that is the responsibility of the residential property owner to know. And so I will insist upon open deliberations at every opportunity, if elected. That is the only way to operate under our unique master plan that Charles Frazier created, which we live under. I will do my best to openly identify who is responsible for what. We should all know the authoritative responsibilities of all entities that are charged with upholding our official CPINE's master plan and any associated covenants. And those covenants are used to implement the plan. And so that is something that we must pay attention to. I will strive to develop and implement a simplified and open planning and permitting process of decision making. These things are very necessary in this CPINES. Thank you.
Thank you, Buddy. Michael Tucker is a candidate for both boards. He's a graduate of Indiana University. He taught high school for a while and then had a long and successful career with Johnson & Johnson. Then he formed his own executive search firm, recruiting C-level candidates for businesses. He has served on various national and regional nonprofit organizations and currently chairs the CSA Strategic Planning Task Force. In that capacity, he has probably met with most of you in this room. He spent literally hundreds of hours on this important initiative for our plantation. Michael?
Thank you, Charlie. And I'm happy to see as many people here that we didn't have this morning. My mission will be to work with every party who has the interest within CPINES to return this plantation to a position it once held, and that was a world-class residential resort community. Think about it. We have everything that paradise could offer. We've got water, we've got beaches, we've got trees, we've got paths, we've got people. There are too many successful people, however, for this place to be divided, and it is. My mission is to minimize the differences by focusing not on commercial interest, resort interest, or even property owner interest. My mission is to focus on a much, much bigger picture, and that is CPINES as a whole. No house divided can stand. Thank you.
So you've met the candidates, and we'll move to round two. Round two and question two, what qualities do you bring to the board if elected, both personally and professionally? You have 3 minutes. At the end of 2.5 minutes, Christine will hold up the yellow sign, and at the end of that 3 minutes, the red sign. It gets complicated, but so the question is, and we'll start again with Paul, what qualities do you bring to the board if elected, both personally and professionally?
And after the red thing, so a large person with a hook comes out and gets you, is that it? Just checking. All of us seeking to represent you on the CSA board have professional and personal qualities that would make us worthy of your vote. However, as I focus on my qualities and how they would allow me to represent you, my fellow property owners, I think of the following. 1, commitment and dedication. Sea Pines is my home. I want what is best for our community, and to accomplish this, you need to be involved and not just live here. That means commitment and dedication of time and energy. Now, I'm doing that now by serving as a member of the board of my property regime, as being an ASSPPO board member, being on the Landscape and Maintenance Committee of CSA, and also having served on the task force that reviewed and modified the suggestions and ideas on Roadmap 2020 to come up with an agenda of products that would actually property owners actually wanted. To meet the demands of being on both boards, you need the qualities of dedication and commitment. Number 2, compassion. I believe it's important to be involved in helping your neighbors in the community and also in the town where you live. For that reason, I've been involved for several years with Meals on Wheels, Hilton Head Heroes, and Second Helping. I believe this is a quality that you need to be a helpful and efficient and dependable board member. Also, a quality I think is necessary is being responsible in financial management. That's a quality that we need in both our professional and our business areas. Professional and personal areas. I think this is a quality I got from my father, who always thought you need to be fiscally responsible, especially if you were managing the money of other people. As a board member, I would use this quality in any decisions involving your money. In my professional life, I developed the qualities of consensus building and negotiating. These are skills that I used many times in managing my company's business, and was also useful when I was president of a sales and management association, and then later as the treasurer of another chemical sales association. These will be needed in working on the CSA board. However, these skills will not be useful unless you have the quality of trust, which is essential in both negotiating and getting consensus from diverse groups. Trust is a must. Without this quality, nothing of value can be accomplished. And finally, in my business career, I've had the opportunity to develop and hone my problem-solving and decision-making skills. And as a board member, you can be sure we'll have problems to solve and decisions to be made that will impact the quality of our life here in Sea Pines. We need board members, thus, to have those qualities who can guide us through these problems for the betterment of the property owners and the community at large. Hopefully, these qualities will help me to be an effective representative of my fellow property owners. Thank you.
I can tell you that Paul's already worn out 3 treadmills over at Sea Pines Country Club at the gym. He works out like a demon. I go in there and see that, and I just leave because nobody does it as exhaustively as he does. The question is, Sue, what qualities do you bring to the board if elected, both personally and professionally?
Thank you. Again, thanks for coming. I think the greatest asset I will bring to the ASSPPO board, which is all I'm running for, is my work experience in both engineering and law. These professions require legal thinking and problem solving through research of the issue at hand. I have managed a research lab in ceramic engineering in Chicago, and I worked for 18 years as an attorney in Akron, Ohio. Coupled with raising a family, I think I am well prepared to serve the residential property owners on the ASSPPO board. I have also worked on many committees and boards. This has required me to follow an agenda and work within a group to attain a desired goal. My commitment to the interests of the residential property owners is another quality that I bring to the ASSPPO board. 2 years ago, as part of a group, I committed to communicating information learned about matters that affect the residential property owners to them by way of email. I helped found an organization called ASSPPO, the Sea Pines United Residents. We welcome any and all emails. Over the last 2 years, I have personally attended at least 90% of the community coffees, ASSPPO, and CSA board meetings. Sometimes I'm the only resident there. You should attend more. SPPO has reported on those meetings to those who have asked for the information, and many residential property owners have contacted us directly, either as a result of our news or they have had problems in the community that have affected their quality of life. We have referred them to the person that can best help them, or we have helped them directly. We have been contacted about many things. One of them was the fuel break 2 years ago that Tom Hennessy reported on yesterday, and there were many others. As a result of attendance at all of these meetings and inquiries from the residential property owners, I have read many of the covenants, along with the town ordinances and state statutes that affect our life in Sea Pines. This knowledge is a quality I will bring to the ASSPPO board. Finally, I would bring to the ASSPPO board my social interaction within the community. I'm a member of the Women's Club of Sea Pines, have served on its board, and am active in many of its interest groups. I have been a member of the Sea Pines Country Club since 2001, and have served on many committees there, including the Long Range Planning Committee and the Gulf Committees. And I've served on the board of directors there for 5 years, and at that time I was secretary. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Mark, tell us what you'll bring to the board personally and professionally.
Thanks, Charlie. I have been a property owner in Sea Pines since 2006. I've been a full-time resident since 2009. My wife, Patricia, and I reside on North Calabogie Cay Road, where I'm in my 3rd year of serving as president of the Calabogie Cay Property Owners Association. As well, I serve on the board of the Calabogie Cay Dredge Association. I'm lead director of Coastal States Bank, and I also serve as chair of their audit committee and their independent committees. I retired just after nearly 30 years in the real estate management, marketing, development, finance, and investment businesses. I've built, I've leased, I've managed, I have invested in and marketed over $50 billion in real estate properties in the United States, UK, and Western Europe over my career. I was president of the Eastern region of L&R Property Corporation, where I managed a business with assets of over $500 million with a team of 80 professionals. When I entered Europe, I built a division that serviced and managed over $50 billion in property and property-related debt assets, and built a team from myself individually to a group of 150 associates. I was born and raised in Delaware, Ohio. I attended Ohio University, where I studied journalism, and I was a letterman on the Ohio University swim team. I think I am trustworthy, confident, a problem solver, focused, and a team player, and will diligently serve our community and its residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Mark's a golfer. I played golf with him once, and I know he deals with a lot of big numbers, but he said he'd never seen numbers that high. And then Charlie Miner, in the interest of full disclosure, my mother's maiden name was Miner, but as far as we know, there's no relationship. So Charlie, tell us what qualities you bring to the board, both personally and professionally.
Thanks, Charlie. Let me do the professional part first. I've been blessed with a varied career. I started off in construction. I ran a company called the Lorne Company in Detroit, Michigan, which was a major mechanical contractor. From there, I was recruited to come to Cleveland, Ohio, and run Automatic Sprinkler Corporation of America, which was a large fire protection company, and international as well. From there, I moved up into the conglomerate that owned Automatic Sprinkler and became a group officer with conglomerate Figge International. I did a lot of mergers and acquisitions work, I traveled the world and ran companies around the world. And then through my board connection, I was on a hospital board. The opportunity came up and I became president of Hillcrest Hospital, ultimately the Meridia Health System, and then we merged with the Cleveland Clinic when I became president and chief executive officer of the Cleveland Clinic's community hospital system on the east. During that time, I served on a number of boards, and I've been around the block a few times on that. I understand diversity of opinion. I served on boards like the Cleveland Roundtable, which was organized to deal with the problems of the inner city and business. I was vice president of the Urban League, which dealt with jobs and poverty in the community. I served on the Ohio Hospital Association board and a variety of insurance company boards. In addition to that, I've served in the community as well. Probably the most challenging, I was reelected twice to the board of education for Hudson, Ohio, about 5,000 students, and served 13 years there, part of that time as president of the board. So I understand the role of a board member. I understand the role of being open in the community, and that's what I bring. From a personal standpoint, Meg and I moved here in 2001. We bought our house on Oyster Landing Road. I was an engineer by training, so I tend to think of things in a practical way. I think I'm objective. I like to know how things work rather than make prejudgments. And I like to see things operating efficiently. I love the outdoors. I spent a lot of time in the Forest Preserve. I'm a kayaker, I'm a fisherman, I'm a tennis player. And I'm probably best known for walking my dog on the beach. That's Dakota, the big black one. Everybody knows her, not more than they know me. At any rate, from a personal standpoint, this is a community I love. And I don't come with an agenda. I come with the idea that I have the experience, the understanding, and the willingness to work with this community and all of its elements towards a good solution to the future. And I look forward to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. When George Paletta came to the interview process, he brought into the building and then into the room one of these expanding rulers, that you measure things with. And he said he'd been, while waiting, walking around the building, and Kerry said he found several problems with the CSA building. So he was doing work even as he arrived there. George.
Thank you, John. It wasn't that bad. The problem was the scale on one of the renderings was very incorrect, and it kind of threw me off a lot. But anyway, being born and raised in New York, in New York City, and spending my entire career in the private sector of heavy construction industry, specializing in street and road construction, which included the work with water, sewer, fiber optics, and utility, I developed a hands-on approach to all matters, from the bidding process to the managing of the job and overseeing a huge unionized workforce. This honed some very valuable communication skills that I developed, and sometimes included the 24-hour rule, where, if some of you folks don't know, in New York, sometimes we have to take 24 hours to think about something before we make a decision, and that could be something that is needed here, but not to take 30 days or 60 days. Oversight and supervision, as well as coordination of operations, is vital to a successful job. Being hands-on is a very positive attribute in being successful. The ability to communicate with the workforce, the city, the state, the developers on specifications and their application to the job is a huge benefit in having discussions with the town or developers on what the covenants permit and do not permit in our plantation, thus protecting the rights of the residents. Being a person with a view toward the future and needs in my industry, I saw that recycling was being promoted by the government in 1981, not only in bottles and cans and paper goods, but with a long-term view for materials used in the construction industry. So in '81, I started and developed ConAg Recycling Company, the first concrete recycling company right in the city of New York on 10 acres of land. Needless to say, it was a huge success and became the first recycling plant to produce state-approved materials for use on many state, city, and local projects. Recycling process in our facility reduced the amount of, quote, lot dumping, since people could now dispose of their concrete rock material legally at our facility. Our company, under my direction, was also the first to use milling machines in the city of New York to remove asphalt before repaving streets. Therefore, I believe that being from the private sector in a very competitive, demanding industry in New York City required a hands-on attitude, communication skills, and a vision for the future. These skills will enable me to serve on the ASSPPO board as a strong voice for the residents. Thank you.
Eberly Smith is next, and again, with full disclosure, Becky and I used to be neighbors with Eberly and Lawrence on Stony Creek, and when she said that she was going to run for the board, I was thrilled. So Eberly, tell us what qualities you will bring to the board if elected, both personally and professionally.
Well, for therapists to talk about themselves is pretty unusual. I am much more comfortable listening than talking about myself, and I'm certainly impressed with the business acumen that is presented here. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. Professionally, as Charlie told you, my background is quite diverse. As a flight attendant and as a probation officer, I think I gained a tremendous number of skills, active listening skills, as well as dealing with very controversial issues and having to resolve an incredible number of problems. After those two positions, I decided maybe something else, and thus began my trek back to graduate school, Virginia Commonwealth University and Smith College, and then I began teaching on an undergraduate level, first at Roanoke College and then at Hollins University. As a part of academic teaching, you serve time on academic committees. My two least favorite, quite frankly, were tenure and promotion and faculty grievance, which were the big ones, and I ended up chairing both of those. I have also worked part-time as a family therapist and co-facilitated women's therapy groups, in addition to serving on boards within the community, including a Child Abuse Prevention Council and CASA, which exists down here. I am a recent retiree and excited to apply some of this to a community that I love. My husband and I have been property owners here since 1993. Our first place was, as for many of you, a rental villa that we purchased after our first visit here, and he said, I thought we were just going to a real estate information center. I didn't know we were going to make an offer, but then we bought our home on Stony Creek and have been here since 1993. Conflict resolution, and conflict is a term I hear a lot in here. Hey, I know about conflict resolution. I've been married to a judge for 35 years. I hope to bring these skills and my love of this community to serve on your ASSPPO board. Thank you.
When I listened to Bill Snyder this morning, I thought, wow, what great pipes. You know, with a voice like that, he could have gone into broadcasting, and Monty Jett would be unemployed today. So, Bill?
Was that a compliment, or what was that? I don't know. Well, let me start with the professional part. I got out of graduate school and I joined, as we said earlier, Continental Bank in Chicago, which is a big bank, biggest in Chicago and sixth largest in the United States, and spent 23 years there. It was a great place to grow up. I was lucky to have some mentors, and I spent a lot of time in corporate banking in the U.S. and then a lot of international travel. The bank was a big international bank, had operations in 63 countries, and I got to visit probably most of those. And I ended up really as group head treasurer and on the management committee, and it was a very good career at that bank, and I was lucky. Excuse me. Then Lisa and I decided to move out to Denver, and there was a bank there. It's still operating today called CoBank. $30 billion in assets, and I went in as the number 2 executive and spent a number of years there, and that was good. And then after I left there, I served as CEO of NAB Bank Corp, still operating in Denver, and then CEO of Allegiant Bank and Trust, which we built up and then sold to another institution. So I think in the private sector, where you have to compete against other companies, and if you don't serve the customers and shareholders and investors, you're quick to find out and things change. More importantly, I think for this group is board experience. I've served on 4 corporate boards, 2 community boards, and I helped with another community board. And then, interestingly, I served on a federal government board for the U.S. Department of Interior. In the early 90s, the federal government was managing $3.5 billion of Native American money from resources on tribal lands, and if you can believe this, they lost $2 billion of it. Not from bad investments, just couldn't account for it. All part of the public record. You can look all this up. So they needed Congress passed an act and named 9 board members, and I served on that board as a financial expert for 10 years. And I've been CFO and a financial expert on other boards as well. One thing I think the board experience is a lot different than being in management. Boards and managements are altogether different things. I think in this case, board experience is very important. Investors Business Daily, which is a daily investment paper we get, had a big article. If you want to see it, I can get it to you, from community associations around the United States. And it talked about some of the issues and litigation that they have. One thing they said was some of the biggest problems are that what they call amateur directors with no board experience. I'm not making that up, that's what they said. So I think board experience is very important. Personal experience, Lisa and I love this place and we're committed. So, we have Midwest hustle and honesty and hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Buddy Thompson's next. We determined this morning, Buddy, I think that you are the only candidate among the board candidates who personally knew Charles Fraser. So that brings a lot of background to the effort. Tell us what you'll bring personally and professionally to the boards, Buddy.
Well, Charles used to say that he likes money, but he also likes architecture, he likes trees, and he also likes birds. So I do the same, but I didn't have the money. But what I enjoy is this. This is a Sea Pines master plan. I have a very unique, I believe, talent in terms of planning, in that I got out of high school at the time that Charles Fraser began Sea Pines in '57. I grew up on St. Simon's. I went through an education and ended up as director of the of the Brunswick-Glenn County Joint Planning Commission. There, I moved to the State Development Board in the state of South Carolina and into the governor's office and provided professional planning services to numerous towns and communities throughout the state of South Carolina. I was invited to come as executive director of the Low Country Council of Governments, which entails the 4 counties in between Charleston and Savannah. With that, we were involved in numerous things, from historic preservation to environmental, stormwater runoff, non-point, that sort of thing. I was involved in providing, again, planning services to a number of towns. Example is I authored the City of Beaufort master plan, comprehensive plan, and implementing ordinances that they go by today. In fact, Walter Bird, a number of them. But I've been around planning, and I've had a great appreciation for what Charles Fraser did. We were doing conventional ordinances, and Charles Fraser was doing a master plan that lasts well beyond our lifetime if we take care of it. And I mean that. I really, truly mean that the supporting covenants are truly what should be looked at. And right currently, you have a town that ignores your covenants. 100% ignores your covenants. They do this across the entire island. They look at these 2-dimensional plans and they judge that they judge what is to be done and what is not to be done. Let me say that a master plan in between 57 and 19, I think this one, there were 7 master plans. Those master plans continue to evolve. If you look at your master plan, it says preliminary. Preliminary means just that it is not fixed. It is to grow. Sea Pines is to grow, but it depends on how you pay attention to it, and that's what I do, and that's what I love about Sea Pines. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy. I said at the outset that many of you in the room know Michael Tucker. He spent a lot of time with the Strategic Planning Task Force. Having served 2 years on the board, my computation is that any board member spends at least 150 hours a year doing work for the community. And when you get into the work that Rob Marsack and Bob Mang do as president of a board, they're putting in over 1,000 hours a year quite easily. So Michael's hit the ground running. He's got several hundred hours under his belt with what he's doing with the strategic planning. Tell us what you bring to the board, personally and professionally.
Thank you, Charlie. Sometimes when you stand in front of an audience, you feel very comfortable, but when your 92-year-old mother is out there looking at you, you feel very uncomfortable, believe me. What qualities do you bring to the board? I am not an individual that's been here for 20 years or 15 years or 30 years. One of the things I bring to this organization potentially is the fact I have a set of brand new eyes. I have no alliance with any previous organizations. I have no alliance with most people in the room. I'm a collaborator. And throughout my personal, my professional career, I've rarely seen anything come down positive when people draw lines in the sand. Life is much easier when we realize that different opinions from our own are not always wrong. They're simply different. My ability to accept opinions outside of my own allows me to more efficiently find paths of agreements that we can all accept. Today we have differences in this community. Today we have differences amongst individuals and amongst groups of individuals. But tomorrow we need to find commonality amongst all these differences so that we can focus once again on a bigger picture that affects all of us. That bigger picture must include every segment of this population if we're to realize the tremendously strong potential Sea Pines Plantation has to offer. Secondly, I'm a communicator. I believe in quality communications, that they can only occur when the exchange of thoughtful words are on a two-way street. As a person who makes his livelihood in sales, like many of you, I quickly learned that until I know your position on a subject, my words will be wasted. For the past 6 months, I've had the privilege of chairing the CSA Task Force on Strategic Planning. I've spoken to over 100 of you sitting out there and your colleagues. I've asked, what do you think CSA's future should look like? Without these exchanges, our mission would have failed. As a board member, I will continue that listening process for the years ahead. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly, I bring leadership qualities to my candidacy. From captaining athletic teams in high school to being a fraternity president of my fraternity, 15 years of executive management with Johnson & Johnson, divisional president of a $200 million company, before owning my own retained executive search firm. In my spare time, I've been board chairman of my local HOA, board chairman of the National Children's Cancer Society, board chairman of the Collin County Children's Advocacy Center, as well as over 20 years' experience conducting workshops around the country on nonprofit board development and executive leadership. I currently serve on Hope Haven of the Low Country as a board member. Collaborator, communicator, and leader. These qualities, plus the background of information I've obtained chairing this task force, will make me a good representative for both organizations. Thank you.
So we come to the third and last question, and here's where we speed it up a little bit. What we're going to do is ask each candidate, when you see Christine put up the yellow sign that says 30 seconds left, please get up and stand behind the person that is at the podium, and when that person leaves, take that person's place. This is where it gets really complicated. So we'll begin again. I'll stand back there and try to direct. When our first, we'll go from my right to left. Paul?
Yep.
Oh, the question. The question is, what are the three most pressing issues in Sea Pines Plantation? The three most pressing issues in the plantation?
Thank you, Charlie. Well, I really wasn't nervous until Michael told me his 93-year-old mother was in here looking. That means she's looking at all of us, Michael, not just you. Anyhow, our Sea Pines community is really in good shape. However, there are always issues that need to be understood, addressed, and managed. And I think there's three areas of concern that I would like to tackle if I'm a board member of the CSA. The first one is continue to build confidence and trust between the board and the resident property owners. That's needed to make our plantation function effectively and efficiently. This confidence and trust will continue to grow with continued transparencies in board and committee activities, continued timely and complete communication, continued timely town hall meetings, and e-blasts on a frequent basis to property owners. I think we're moving nicely in managing in this issue, but we need to be continually focused to make sure that confidence and trust is always used or viewed as a positive. Second issue I'd like to look at or tackle is maintaining and enhancing our quality of life here in Sea Pines. That means our infrastructure, not only maintaining it, but improving it so that we can only improve it when we can demonstrate that these improvements will add value to our quality of life. This means managing the relationship between the property owners and the commercial entities. Now, we both have a common interest in doing what is best for Sea Pines, and understanding each other's needs and wants will help us to enhance our quality of life here in Sea Pines. This also means the managing of the rights of those who rent their properties with the rights of those of us who have chosen to live here full time. Now, this can be at times a difficult and tenuous operation, but it needs to be done if we want our Sea Pines quality of life to grow. And this also means the monitoring of the land use within Sea Pines, such that the properties are retained or maintained consistent with Sea Pines standards. If we allow these standards to slide, then you can be very confident that our quality of life will slide with them. And the third issue is to implement and develop a strategic plan for the future of Sea Pines. Now, we heard Michael Tucker is already, and his task force is already working on a strategic plan, and I'm confident we'll get it in the very near future. Now, once we get it, the CSA board needs to communicate this clearly, concisely, and frequently with all property owners, and that we understand the implementation of a timeline and the cost involved so that we all will buy into this plan. Now, these are important issues that we must manage, and board members need to have a clear understanding. And if they are managed properly, then we'll be a very happy and successful community. Thank you.
I feel a major issue facing the plantation is that of communication and transparency. I believe there are two sides of the same coin. I applaud the actions of both boards in opening their meetings to the residents. They do, however, what they don't do is advertise this to you. As I said, I attend over 90% of these meetings. I know where they are and I know where to look. And sometimes the meetings are not listed on the calendars. I think we could use this board out front much more effectively to advertise ASSPPO and CSA board meetings. While I applaud opening the board meetings, I condemn the fact that they continue to have closed meetings that they call the executive sessions. Executive sessions are not the proper forum to discuss the matters that appear to be being discussed. On ASSPPO board, I would hope to open these meetings to everyone. After all, the residents provide over 90% of the operating expenses of the CSA. Another pressing issue in Sea Pines is that of identity. Are we a residential gated community with a resort in it, or a resort with residential property owners and smaller commercial operations? This is important because there are almost 6,000 residential property owners. They represent an investment in their properties of over $5.5 billion. And yearly, the residential property owners improve those properties to the tune of over $30 million. There are a smaller number of commercial entities, and we would all be served if we were equally represented and we were equally informed. The need for the ASSPPO board to exercise the authority provided by the covenants is also a pressing issue within the plantation. ASSPPO and the Property Owners Advisory Board were created to protect the interests of the residential property owners. ASSPPO, not CSA, is the protector of the covenants. The 1974 covenants state, and this was reconfirmed in the 1988 covenants, that the master plan map was filed with ASSPPO by the plantation company. This map controls the application of the covenants. ASSPPO controls the master plan, and ASSPPO is charged with meeting with the Sea Pines Resort not less than monthly. And ASSPPO is supposed to advise the company in matters relating to the community services. And ASSPPO only has legal standing to seek enforcement of the covenants. Thank you.
I believe the most important issue confronting our community is, as I mentioned earlier, is to ensure that we maintain our position on Hilton Head Island and the east coast of the United States as a premier residential resort plantation. We've enjoyed this for the last 50+ years, and to maintain that over the coming years will enhance our individual property values, and in doing so, there's a number of things we need to consider. First and foremost, in my opinion, we need to invest in our infrastructure. Our assets continue to age. If we want to continue to be a premier community, as we have in the past, we have to invest in those assets. Status quo is not acceptable. Status quo will allow those assets to decline, affecting our enjoyment of those assets and ultimately the decline of our property values. Secondly, we've been extremely fortunate over the years to avoid a devastating hurricane. Mother Nature is unreliable, and I think you can assume that at some point we will in fact experience that devastating direct hit. I don't believe we have the proper reserve in place to fund a cleanup of our community, to return our community to its prior state. I think it's important that we come up with a solution to that problem. Thirdly, I think we could better control our gates. I think during peak season and holidays, our roadways are inundated, our bike paths are inundated, and I think we need to consider a solution to that problem. Lastly, as has been mentioned, our covenants. I think those covenants need to be uniformly applied. They need to be evaluated. I think maintenance of vacant lots, foreclosed properties, only deter the value of our own individual assets, and we should see that those are maintained at the same high quality as we all maintain our own properties. Thank you.
First came down to Hilton Head in 1967 on a golf package for $180 for 3 days. Wow. Things have changed. One of the interesting things about being here 45 years ago was that a lot of the infrastructure, which is here in Sea Pines, was there then. And like my infrastructure, I wish it was younger than it is, but it ain't. And so, as a number of the speakers have mentioned, that's something you got to take care of. Unfortunately, taking care of infrastructure costs money, and that's where you come into the balance. How do you figure out how to do that? If we had unlimited funds, it wouldn't be a problem. We don't. What do we have to do? All sorts of things you wouldn't think of. When I was here the other day for the community forum on cutting all the trees back in the area so that we have emergency vehicle clearance, 15 feet, I drove back looking at the trees and said, oh my Lord, those are all over the place. In terms of, it's a beautiful campus, but it has some safety issues associated with that. So clearly that's one of the key issues facing us. The other issue that faces all of us is change. We are in a community that has changed dramatically in the 50 years that since I've been here first, and it continues to change. Over 50% of our property owners here are non-resident. That's going to change, I think, as baby boomers retire, slowed down by the recession. Perhaps we'll become more of a resident community. Same time, those people who bought their homes in the 1970s or 80s were aging. So we'll be moving on, and other people will be taking our place, new families. What are they looking for? Bike paths, recreation, beach access. It's the process of managing that change, not the holding on to the past, that I think is important. That's where we have to make a difference as a board and say, we're all a family here, whether it's the prep school, whether it's the resort, whether it's the homeowners. We're all a family and we all live here within this boundary. What can we do to make it work? And finally, there is an elephant in the room. I look with some dismay at the weather report whenever they name a storm originating off the coast of Africa and heading in our direction. It's a long ways away, but it's getting here. I read a plaque a couple of years back about the Great Storm. I think it was in 1897. I don't know which it was. Hit directly here. We're fortunate the Gulf Stream stands 70 miles offshore, so most of the storms track up there, but we're vulnerable, and that's something we need to be aware of, and it's certainly something that's on all of our minds in terms of protecting our property values. And then, if it does happen, how do you recover? How does the Sea Pines itself support us as individual property owners in getting back on our feet or making up for the damage that's occurred? So I hope to be able to serve you in those areas. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
George Paletta, and again, I'm only running for ASSPPO. As a 32-year plantation homeowner and a permanent resident now, I observed the changes in the administration of the plantation that have resulted in a progressive loss in direction of the ASSPPO management with regard to the protection of property owners' rights versus commercial interests. This erosion of owners' property rights is detrimental. I'd like to lend my experience with contracts, construction, and management to ensure a positive future for Sea Pines residents. Property owners must be informed and have the chance to be proactive in determining the direction of new construction projects, proposals by the resort, and the town. As the largest investors and sole source of revenue for CSA, Sea Pines residents must protect their rights. These rights must be considered before decisions are made and before groundbreaking ceremonies. One very important issue is the education of all our residents who pay the POA money to understand what the present powers of ASSPPO are with the covenants and the protection for the residents. Be educated to understand that ASSPPO has the right and the duty to be involved in all issues regarding development, town council input, and the covenants of Sea Pines. The erosion of ASSPPO power is due to the perception that it has no power, and that is totally incorrect. We need strong voices to combat this and regain the position as the protector of residents' rights through the covenants. Remember, residents fund is 90%, remember residents fund 90% of the money used to maintain Sea Pines Plantation. CSA is not the governing agency, but owns, operates, and maintains our facilities funded by the residents. Transparency is a very favorite word of politicians, but one that never seems to evolve. We are not politicians, but serve at the will of the residents, you people. Therefore, we have no reason to hold back any information on issues and must be proactive with the town council and our area representatives. Any information about future plans by commercial entities or the resort within the plantation must be given to us immediately. We have not been able to get this input and are always fighting an issue that has traction and lobbying already done. In order to maintain this paradise of Sea Pines, we must be involved in issues and use the enforcement procedures permitted to us in the covenants. We all want to maintain our plantation the way it was designed, for peace, tranquility, and environmental balance. Thank you.
We all chose to come here, and we all choose to stay here. Property values go up, and if we're unhappy, we can leave, I guess. But we all choose to be here. I think that it's important to recognize when we talk about these issues that many times they raise their head, and then within a year, they are gone. When I was here last summer, the issue was dredging. The issue of dredging was the hot topic. This year, it is a done deal and is getting ready to be implemented. So I think we need to recognize that issues change and we solve them through creative thinking. What kinds of issues are important to us? Because I think we need to recognize that what's important to one is probably important to all. We're all members of this community. I think that it is very important for us to exercise courteous discourse when we are dealing with one another. We need to know one another as whole people and not just as roles, and we need to be courteous in our discourse, and I think that that is an issue. Secondly, I think we need to develop a method, and I say this as a proposed candidate for ASSPPO, to communicate between property owners and rental companies to ensure that our guests are aware of the conduct expected within our plantation. It is the small things in life that become a great irritant. It is towels hanging over fences. It is people throwing 5 and 6 bicycles on a front yard. It is the next door neighbor shooting BBs off of the back deck at shorebirds in the lagoon. We need to have some way of being certain that we communicate about the small things that tremendously impact our quality of life. And thirdly, and this is just a personal thing for me, I'm real worried about these leisure paths. If you would like to see my scars and if you would like to see my bandages, I was struck by a bike on Monday of this week. And this is not even during the peak season. Leisure paths are shared, not only by bicycles, but by bikers and by inline skaters. And there are many, many things, and this is probably a part of this infrastructure that they talk about, but this is one that very much affects our quality of life, and I think is probably an issue for all of us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yellow card didn't come up, good. Well, I guess if I boil it down to 3, key issues here, one would be a good, effective strategic plan. I have done a lot of that in my career and would consider that an area of expertise. Being a CFO and CEO of corporations, you do strategic planning. Let me tell you how hard it is. Probably a lot of you have done it as well. And then after you do it, it is very hard to do that. Then getting your stakeholders and your shareholders, and in this case the property owners, to understand it and buy into it is another level, of difficulty. And then it really gets tough when you have to implement it. So I think, Michael's work on that, he's been working on for 6 months, is important. We need a good strategic plan, and we need it in place, and I think I can help with that. The second would be infrastructure, and then I'm going to say risk as a part of that. We have family up and down the East Coast and friends, and in Chicago, and we visit, and a lot of people used to come to Hilton Head, but they don't come anymore. Some of this is anecdotal. We get them back down here to visit. But if you find out why, they say, well, isn't that a little tired, or isn't the traffic and congestion? And I think there's been a little loss of reputation, and there doesn't have to be, because this is probably the most beautiful place, and I'd agree with others. This should be the best place to live in the United States, really. We need to do that, and infrastructure is part of it. But that identifying a problem and solving it is magnitudes of difference, really. How much do we need? How are we going to pay for it? And how are you going to put it in place over time? And the next is the risk. We've talked about storms. There's environmental risk. There's more litigation risk all around today. I know some new directors have put in place some of the heavy lifting that's going on is identifying those risks and then figuring out how to manage them. I think I can really help with that process as well. And then the last, which is communication, much overused, and And, but it really is important, and let me give you some of my personal views of that. Not only is the volume important and the frequency of communication, you have to do that, that is necessary as a base, but just as importantly is the quality and understanding complex problems and then being able to explain those. So it's like the difference between the front page of a newspaper where you say this happened Tuesday and that happened Thursday, and then the opinion and editorial pages. And I think the communication really has to include, you know, thoughtful actions and why those actions were taken. So anyway, I'd be happy to serve at your pleasure, and thank you.
I'd like everybody to be reminded that I run for the ASSPPO board. And I find myself thinking about one thing that people talk about: strategic planning. Please understand that the strategic plan you hear about is for CSA. CSA owns, operates, and maintains the strategic plan that I held up a while ago that was actually developed by 2,000. At one time, the employment of Charles Frazier, 2,000 employees. He had experts, Robert Marvin and Walterboro, one of the best. He had the best that came out of the University of Georgia, the landscape architects. Well, I guess my meaning is this, that we have a plan. That plan has been developed, and that's what I'm asking you to maintain. And so with that, I'd like to say that due to my protective instincts for worthy land plans and my desire for openness, and I say that because I spent 30 years in the planning process. The planning process does not need executive sessions. In 30 years, I've only been in 2 in my life, and I pride myself on that one thing. I will not go into executive sessions. The planning process is supposed to be open, discussed at the table, and you should know like I know at the same time. And that's the way it works. But anyway, I will do my best to openly identify the authoritative responsibilities of all entities that are charged with upholding and adopting the Sea Pines plan. We must all know who is responsible. Better said is, where does the buck stop? And so my desire is to create and put into place a simplified and open planning and permitting process that does not exist currently. I will skip on down and just say my concern for total openness is my understanding of land plan and the plan implementation is a public process. It is not in any way a hidden process. It's not an after the fact process. It is planning. And the same way that all of us understand if you're going to plan your house, you got to know where your bathroom's going to be. So I just think that's the same thing with Sea Pines here. Sea Pines Plantation is a very unique place that Charles built that is sensitive to the land placement here on the southern end of Hilton Head Island. And the southern end of Hilton Head Island is one place that is probably the most beautiful area along the East Coast. I'm very familiar with Georgia and South Carolina's coast, and that's the reason I'm here. Thank you, folks.
Sitting on my desk right now at home are about 500 suggestions for the Strategic Planning Task Force. They address about 125 different problems. Do you know how happy I am to only have to list 3 of them for you today? First issue isn't new. It deals with the covenants. It's that organization of rules that govern us that was created 50 years ago, and in the same time they have changed very slightly. But yet the community and the demographics have changed greatly. Problems have been swept under the rug in hopes that they will go away. We can't do that because of the covenants. But too many problems under the rug will make for a very uneven floor. The time is here to rethink how this community will be governed in the future. Think about this. The covenants restrain CSA from any assessment changes necessary to upgrade an aging infrastructure. And yet the covenants allow the resort and the commercial interests to maintain continuity with no term limits, while the CSA board and others turn over the property owners 1/3 every year. In the words of a fired athletic director who kept his football coach 1 year too long, that which should be done eventually should be done immediately. Let's not wait any longer to do that which will eventually be done by others who will follow us. Second issue deals with our ability to sustain a strong financial structure. Within a dynamically changing economic world, nothing is stagnant. While the resort has made significant investments to upgrade their facilities, the rest of us that share this population must do the same. Limited by restraints to raise the gate fee, limited by restraints to change the assessments, we have to be able to rebuild a tired and aging infrastructure that's weathered and worn. We have to be able to rebuild the plantation's infrastructure if it's destroyed by a natural disaster. Those are big problems. But the resort and the CSA also share another problem, and that is simply, how do we find the best combination of wages and benefits that will attract quality workers to this plantation when they could stop 15 minutes, 30 minutes short of here and do the exact same job for somebody else? Have you ever wondered what Sea Pines would look like if it were sold to a foreign investment group? In the world of risk management, having a substantial reserve fund provides protection. And lastly, Sea Pines quality of life. How do we enhance it? What is the Sea Pines quality of life? It means different things to different people. It has no same meaning. It includes such things as, how do you motivate people to care about their property? How do you demonstrate trust, credibility, and openness in a representative form of government? Will your new neighbor be a neighbor or a landlord? How do you widen trails when trees are in the way and people don't want them cut? It's a difficult problem, but we have to be able to identify, once again, the Sea Pines lifestyle and enhance it. Thank you.
Read a great quote the other day about Bear Bryant, the storied football coach at Alabama, and the quote was, "I don't know what he had, but he had a lot of it." And I think we do know what these people have, and they have a lot of it. That's a desire to really help this plantation become a greater place in which to live, to increase the quality of life here. A round of applause for all these candidates. These are the steps forward. I'll get around here to read them. The ballots will be mailed November 1, as Rob said. Vote for up to a maximum of 3 candidates. Have to return the ballots by December 1. The Elliott Davis CPA firm supervises the elections, and there are the members of the nominating committee. Again, to reiterate what Rob said at the outset, it was a great pleasure for me as chairman of the committee, and I know for everyone who was part of the committee, to see these folks come forward. What a great depth we have here, how rich we are in this plantation to have these individuals from all over the world, who've been all over the world, who have all these resources. And our thanks to them for coming forward and presenting themselves as candidates. Our thanks to you for being here today. For those who are not here, those folks you know, please tell them to go to the website and to watch some of this. I think they will appreciate it, and I think they'll learn a lot about the candidates. I know it's cocktail hour. Thank you very much.